The girl never expected that the enemy army, which Luke Braveheart could not defeat even with all his might, could be solved by Natsuko Hirose with just a single drawing. The boss that Natsuko Hirose drew this time left Luke Braveheart utterly stunned. Not long ago, after discovering her ability to create, Natsuko Hirose became a little proud and decided to summon her desk and draw something for fun. However, it was strange, no matter how hard she tried, the ruler in her hand didn't respond. At that moment, the king called for a meeting with the heroes who had defeated the enemy army, and Natsuko Hirose was naturally among them. They wanted to understand what the real world Natsuko Hirose spoke of was like. She didn't want to hide anything, so she told them that she had been reincarnated from the real world into an animated world where everyone was a character in an animation. The others couldn't believe it and thought Natsuko Hirose was mentally unstable. However, the prophetess intervened, saying that they were all working together to prevent the revival of the Demon King. Natsuko Hirose had the potential to become one of the 9 great heroes, but Luke Braveheart was the first to disagree. He didn't believe someone like Natsuko Hirose could ever become a hero. This angered Natsuko Hirose. She didn't want to be a hero anyway. After all, in 3 days, the insect swarm would launch an airstrike, and if she went to the front lines, she wouldn't survive. Everyone was puzzled, wondering how the insect swarm could possibly fly. Luke Braveheart wanted Natsuko Hirose to explain where she got this information, but she refused to help him and left the town. She wandered into the desert, not wanting to stay in this world. She knelt and prayed to the gods, asking to return to the real world, but there was no effect. By afternoon, she aimlessly roamed around, regretting not watching more time travel shows, as maybe that would help her figure out how to return to the real world. Eventually, hungry, Natsuko Hirose secretly went to Luke Braveheart's window. She nearly scared the unicorn to death. She said she was willing to share some information, but only if Luke Braveheart promised to make sure she'd have enough to eat from now on. He agreed. Then, Natsuko Hirose drew the insect army that would strike in 3 days. The creatures in the drawing were unlike anything Luke Braveheart had seen before. Natsuko Hirose explained that in 3 days, these insects would attack, destroy the crops, and cause a food shortage that would result in half the town's population dying. Hearing this, Luke Braveheart immediately called for farmers to harvest early and began preparing strategies to fight the enemy. If the enemy truly attacked in 3 days and they managed to repel them, Luke Braveheart would agree to make Natsuko Hirose one of the 9 great heroes. However, Natsuko Hirose wasn't interested. Instead, she went to a tavern, wanting to try the famous milk beer from the animation. 3 days later, with the alarm blaring, an insect from Natsuko Hirose's drawing slowly approached the town. Luke Braveheart assigned the unicorn and the elves to defend. Natsuko Hirose wanted to join, but Luke Braveheart grabbed her and rushed her to the front lines, as they needed her summoning magic to defeat the insect swarm. The insect army launched their attack, and facing such a large number of them, Luke Braveheart knew it would be nearly impossible to defeat them, but he still chose to fight. Natsuko Hirose was moved by his determination, and just then, the ruler in her hand began to glow, prompting her to draw again. But she couldn't draw the same thing twice, and it had to be a new creation. Faced with this requirement, Natsuko Hirose didn't know what to do. At that moment, the insect swarm broke through the defenses and entered the town. Fortunately, they had already set up defenses, and it barely held, but the insect numbers were overwhelming, and the unicorn's barrier was close to collapsing. Natsuko Hirose, under pressure, finally came up with an idea for a boss that would be suitable for aerial combat. She immediately summoned her desk and began to draw. Luke Braveheart covered for her, but the insects kept attacking, and Luke Braveheart could only hold out for another minute. Fortunately, Natsuko Hirose had been practicing drawing every day, and her hand speed was quick. She managed to finish the drawing just in time. And so, Natsuko Hirose once again saved the town.